question.
Yeah, just wait. I am inviting few people.
We are streaming live now.
Wait, I am inviting few people.
Hi guys.
We should create a new link now.
Let's start. Hi Aditi. Hi Megha. I think Aditi wanted to go
Hi, Megha.
first.
Live now. Wait,
Yeah,
I am
I
inviting
will do
few
that.
people.
Okay. So I'll show you.
Hi, we should create a new link now.
So how many of you are actually working in React
I
or are
am
front-end
working in
developers?
React.
React?
Aparna, what are you
Why
working
not?
on these days?
These days, now I'm dabbling in Golang.
Oh, nice.
It's really cool. Thouड़ा challenging है. It reminds you of your C days, but
Yeah, it's very syntax heavy. In fact, TypeScript sometimes feel like that.
really TypeScript Node.js, so I've done quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm a noob here. React.
So that's okay. I think we can start. So that's the reason I actually start with always these introduction talks, because I really don't know who would know how much of React. So the topic is React hooks, and this is just the introductory talk to it. Okay, so I'll introduce myself. I am Aditi, and this is my profile. So I'm working as a digital analyst at McKinsey and Company, and I'm a full stack developer. Those are links to my accounts in case you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram. So I gave another session on React. It was a hands-on workshop which I gave a few months back in Bangalore. I have added the links to the presentation and the demo, and I would share this as well. So the idea is that React introduced hooks in their 16.8 version to public, and before understanding why we are using hooks and why was this transition needed, let's just have a quick walkthrough of why to use React. Okay, so the basic pointers would be the flexibility that it brings. One is that it's a library over a framework, which gives it more flexibility in terms of which node modules you can use. There are a lot of inbuilt code. There is a lot of code available online which people are contributing all the time. Apart from there is backward compatibility. When I say backward compatibility, I mean that with the incoming of React hook logic, it means that the older versions will not break. Whatever code you wrote like a year back using classes, it will not break. The other reason was that, say, Facebook is the company that maintains React a lot, and they have like 1,000 components. Now imagine them actually changing each component on the same day to make it compatible. So what they did was they made it backward compatible. So even if there were components, you can sprinkle React hooks in your application and use it partially in your application and keep incrementally changing the logic to React hooks. So that is for like backward compatible. Apart from that, there is corporate commitment. So a lot of websites like I mentioned, Facebook, Netflix, Instagram, all of these use React as the technology stack for front-end development. So the next important part is that the developer experience is really, really smooth, and the components so everything is like a component in a React application. The components that we create are reusable, and then, for example, if I create like a tab or I create like a link or a button, I can always reuse these. Apart from that, there are a lot of libraries that are available, such as Material UI, uh, Office UI, that was built by Microsoft. So all these are open source now, and we can always use these for in already made components and leverage that feature. So apart from that, React uses JSX, which is like HTML and JavaScript. So it is very smooth and very easy to learn. So there is a very slight learning curve, I would say. And you can almost pick up React in like a week and start working on it. React is very performant because of the feature which is called virtual DOM, uh, which is what is VDOM. By VDOM, I mean that React calculates all the time that the changes in the DOM tree, and it calculates from its previous version if there is a re-rendering required or not. So it makes it very performant because it only changes the section or component that has changed in your application based on the state or props. So that is why we are using React. Next would be what is hooks. So like I said, hooks was added in React in 16.8 version, and they let you, so this is the definition that they have given in the React documentation. They let you use state and other React features without writing a class. So initially, when we used to write a component, we would have to decide if this component will be a class or a function. So now what React has done is it has neutralized everything and said that everything can be a function. The features that a class gave, such as maintaining state and using lifecycle hooks, all these are now available as part of function using hooks. So we need not waste our time deciding on if it's a class or a function. We always create a function, and all these functionalities are available or hooked into our function as well. So why do we have to use hooks? One is that whatever concepts you already have about React, they have not changed. So there is still maintenance of state, there is still passing of props, there is still context API. But what has changed is that the usage of it has become more easy and more direct. So that is hooks. And like I said, it's backward compatible, so it will not break your older code. So because it's more direct to use, it is easier. The code is less verbose, and you have to, instead of writing 20 codes for changing the state, you have to write 2. So these are the popular hooks. Like one more thing, please tell me if I'm going over my time. I'll try to keep it short. These are the popular hooks. Use state, use context, use effect are the ones we will cover in this talk. While use reducer, use callback, use memo, we can maybe cover in another session. So this is how a class and a functional component look like. The one on top is like a functional component where it's receiving some props, and then it returns something like a regular function. The second one that you see was a class, which we will not use in hook anymore. But we might have some components that we will have to change from class to function. So in a class, we used to have a render function inside which we will have a return. So that is one differentiating thing. Apart from that, previously you could not use a state in a functional component. Now you can. And also lifecycle methods, now you can use in a function. So let's go to use state. So what is use state? So I don't know how much you're aware of the older version. So this is the older version, the one you see on top. This is how you created the initial state for a component. If you see this dot state is equal to loader is equal to true, and there is details object. And this is on the right to it, you see this dot set state loader, and this is the way we set another value. So initially loader was true, now loader is false. This is the older syntax. Now it has been replaced by just a single line. So if you look at it, it says use state, and it takes an initial state value. This is the argument we pass to it. This argument can be any value that we initially want to initialize to this hook that we are creating. So it can be, say, a Boolean value, say true or false. It can be an object. It can be a number, right? For a counter, for example, it can be 0 initially. So what we get out of it is current state value. This is what is returned from the hook. We are doing an array destructuring here, and that is why we see a current state value and a function to set the new value. So current state value is the new state that we got, such as loader, and function to set new value is called set loader. Right, so wherever you want to set that value, you just simply use set loader and put the new value there. So instead of using the entire syntax on top, we are just replacing it with a single line, and wherever we need to set it, we use the function to set new state value. I'll give you a quick demo of this. So I'll just walk you through a small application that I'm trying to build. It is really small because I didn't want to confuse anyone who is new to hooks. So there is an app component from where everything starts. I have put the routing here. If you look at this switch, route. So all these are routing paths. And this takes you to home component. So we can actually navigate to home component from here. So in the home component, I have put a container, a counter, and then signs and a count. So if I show it to you how it looks like this. So right now there's routing on top, there's a header, and then there is a counter which says plus and minus. But right now the initial value is not set, we don't have any state in the component. So let's try to put in the state in the home page. So what do? I use state. It suggests me how to use it, and I just enter this snippet comes in. I can select, say, a counter. So now you have a counter, which is your state, and set counter is a function that you can use to change that state, alter that state. And initial value, I'll keep 0, like I explained to you. Now if I want to show a counter here, I will actually replace this count with a counter. Now let's see how it looks. Okay. So useState is not defined because we did not import it. So useState is simply imported from React like this. Alright. And set counter is defined but not used because we are not setting the value right now. We will set the values when we click on plus or minus. So we see 0, but these don't. What we want to achieve? We want to achieve that when we click on it, the counter increases. So we will add here like this, and this is all JSX that we are writing. So we just use set counter. And what do we set it to? Whatever was the earlier value of counter, we do a -1 to it. And that's all. And similarly, we will copy this and we will put it in the plus sign as well. Like a counter plus. And if we demo it, we can now do this. So this is how useState works. This is a small example of useState. So initially we would have put a constructor there, put a this.setState. Now we just have a single line. Let's continue our discussion on useEffect now. So what is useEffect? So there were a lot of lifecycle methods that existed in the earlier version of React, which still exist, but has been replaced by useEffect. So there were a lot of them, and what would happen is if you wanted to implement a logic, you will have to split that logic into multiple functions to get that happening. So what first is, why do we use useEffect? So why useEffect is a side effect, to create a side effect. For example, if I have to fetch some data, like make an API call, I will use a useEffect. So earlier the top one is the earlier version. For example, there is a lifecycle method called component did mount. As the word suggests, it says component did mount. So our component has already mounted, and after this lifecycle method is automatically called if it is in your code, if it is part of your component. So now useEffect gives us a provision to implement the above logic in this useEffect syntax. So there were a lot, like I said, there are a lot of lifecycle methods. There was component will mount, did mount, will receive props. A lot of them have been extracted, and now useEffect does a lot of things. So there are ways of doing individual elements of it. For example, what we are going to demo is component did mount, for example. We will see how to implement the same logic in useEffect, and say component did update, we will see how to implement the same logic in useEffect. So did update is, for example, if a prop or a state changes. Every time a prop or a state changes, component did update is called because the component got updated because of its state changing. Similarly, component will unmount is called when the component is supposed to unmount. By unmounting, I mean that, for example, if you route to some other page, that particular component on the first it got unmounted. In that case, you might have to do some activities relevant to your application, such as unsubscribing to something, removing an event handler, etc. All that is done in component will unmount. Now these three we will see how to use in useEffect. Do you have any questions? Okay, I will continue. So component did mount. 1 second. Looks all good.
Yeah, Aditi. It's very weird
okay,
to
fine.
talk on the mute and like,
Okay, no problem, right? You can see it easily. You can view my screen, right?
yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Okay, going back to our example, we will use a use effect here and see when it is called and how we can use it to use effect. So this is the syntax that we get. So what does use effect pass? Okay, so when we call use effect, we have to we use two arguments there. One is a callback function, and then there is a dependency array. So where you see input, it's the dependency array, and this is the callback function. This one, right? So whatever you pass here gets implemented, and whatever you pass here is only implemented while cleaning. Like while cleaning is while components will unmount. Right, so I'll go back to the presentation and show you one by one. So it says component did mount, and how do we implement this? Pass an empty array to run only callback on mount. So when the component mounts, if we want to run something on the first go, only when the component mounts, we want this to be implemented, we keep this array empty. That is all. So this is how you implement a component did mount. So if I write a console.log here, and use effect we have to import. So we imported it from React here, and then we just look at our our browser console, and we got a did mount. So if I refresh this and again the component renders, after it mounted, we see a did mount. Alright, so this is how we see a did mount. Next is component did update. So every time some variable changes, some prop or state changes, component did update is called. Also, it is called in the initial mounting. So if you look at it, component did update will do the job of component did mount as well as any updation. So in case I decide to change this set counter here, ignore the return function right now, we'll reach that later on. For example, if I do a set counter and set the value to 100. So what does this mean? This means that the counter will get updated now to 100 value in the first mount. Since the counter got updated, this use effect, so this is the way we implement component did mount. How do we implement component did update? So we will write that this should update if the counter changes. So in the dependency array, we mentioned that counter has whenever the counter changes, you implement this function. So for example, now the counter will change, it will implement itself again and again. So let's do actually a counter plus 100 so that we see the change. Counter plus 100. Look at this. It's crazy, going crazy out there because it is re-rendering itself every time the counter changes. So every time we do a plus 100, it calls itself again. So it's mounting again and again. So what can we do to actually look at it slowly? We can put a set timeout maybe to we will move this inside it and put a timeout of say 2 seconds. Alright, and now every 2 seconds we should see a re-render. So right now it's 0. Again it updated, it got 200 and then 200. So what is happening is set timeout is running every 2 seconds, and that's why the use effect is being called every 2 seconds. So this is how did mount works. I'll comment this out, otherwise the browser will open. Okay. So next is the one we just saw, which is a call hook based on a specific dependency. So right now we have a dependency on counter, right? Yeah. So what if I add another state called test? Okay. And do a set and actually remove this counter and we put a test here. Now test is not getting updated, right? Text is not getting updated. So this should not run. This should run only the first time, and because test is not getting updated, the use effect should not be called again. It should be called once, and then once again. How many times do you think it should be called? I think it should be called once on the mounting, and then the test does not update, so it will only be called once. So let's try this out. I'm clearing this. Did mount. So it got called once, right? And what? Okay, now let's look at the fourth way. So it said that call hook based on a specific dependency. We entered test. It did not update because test is not getting updated as a state anywhere, right? So we passed the second argument in that case, which is the dependency array. Fourth condition that we see is component will unmount. What does it say? How do we implement this? Return a callback in the use effects callback argument. So what is use effects callback argument? Use effects callback argument is this. If we return something from here, it will act as component will unmount. Also, the component should unmount to be able to see this running, right? So if we just try to re-render here, nothing will happen. We will not see that console log. But if we go and navigate to cart, it will show us that the component did unmount. Why did we see this? Because home component unmounted, and now we are seeing the cart component. In case we put like a state in cart saying component will unmount in cart and then move to home, even we will see that console log. We will be able to see that console log. Okay, so this is the summary of it. So to implement only component did mount, we pass the second argument as empty. If we want component did mount and did update both to execute, we don't pass any argument at all. I don't think we saw this. Direct and more easy. So it says that sharing state between, I think it should be components, becomes easy. Sorry, that's not object, that's components. So I'll show you an example. So in case you have a DOM like this, where you have on top a app, and then you have home, card, something else, for example, contact page, and then there are components under it. So if one component and the second component, which is not a direct sibling or not a parallel, needs the same prop value, what does it do? So the earlier solution was that their parent should pass this prop down, like drill down that prop, so that every other component can get it. Every component that needs it has to be a child of it. Now this was React was built this way. React wants you to pass down props, but then we needed a better solution to this, which brings in the concept of context. Now, if we create a context in app, child 1 on the extreme right and child 2 on the extreme left can also access it, right? So how do we do this? I'll directly jump to the demo and then we can grab this up. Okay, so I'll go to my app component and create a context, not app, I'll go to index, which is like the topmost component. I'll create a context here. How do you create a context? So there is a very simple API called create context. Let's see how to use it. It says you have to pass a default value to it. So let's pass. So the other logic is, why do we need context? For example, in case you have login implemented in your entire application and you want this username to be available on every other page. So you can pass it. If imagine username is needed only in one of the leaf components. In that case, you can simply create a context saying I want to pass username. So I'll put a username colon Aditi here. So this is my initial value to the context, and I'll create a demo context, or we'll create a logged in context. Alright. So now this login context has two properties to it. One is provider and the other is called consumer. So if I wrap my entire application, the app component, inside a provider, okay, dot provider, and then we need to wrap it around, okay, sorry, there. Okay, so say set test is assign a value. Okay, let's go to home component and remove this extra state that we created. We can set test this, or we can just remove set test from here. Okay. We don't have test anymore. Cool. So this works. I'll remove this set counter. This is from the last demo. Let's continue with the context demo. So here in the provider, we can pass any value. So now I will pass this value. So actually I'll pass this value. So whatever value we pass from the provider is the value that we need to be accessible in any other leaf component. So for example, I passed this and initially I kept the state empty. Now I want to use this in the product. So product in my hierarchy of things right now, product is like a leaf node. If I want to use this context here, what I have to do is first is I have to import this. So first is I'll export this login context and import it here. Index.js, right? And then I use context hook. So what does it say? So it says that we need to pass the context value and then it will give us the context. So we pass login context here. This is the context we want to use, and then it gets saved in, say, a demo value. Okay. Okay, so this component is actually a class component. We have to use functional components. So I think this is a good how I can show how to convert a class component to a functional component and what differs. So this was a class component. We don't need this extend component anymore. We can create an arrow function based component here. We don't need a render function anymore. And now we have a class functional component instead of a class component. So now you see this is not giving me an error. So now if I console the demo value, I should have gotten, or instead of actually consoling, I'll create a span here and say welcome and the username here. Alright. Let's give it a class name of username. And what's left? So this product has to be called somewhere, right? Right now I'm not using this product component anywhere. So what I'll do is I'll go to home page that we just see on the screen. I will import this product and we need to wrap this. So we have to return one component. I'm using a React fragment here to wrap the entire, these two components. So we can't return two, we have to return like one whole component. So I'm returning a div. You can actually write a div here instead of using a fragment, but we can use a fragment, so I think we can experiment with this as well. This product has to be called, right? So I'll call product from my home page. We need to pass these values as props. So name, cost, and URL of a product. To show the name, so I have a mock data for name, cost, and URL of the product, which is called product list. I will import this product list. It's in a mock folder. Okay, sorry. It's not a default import. Mock data product. Okay, so now I should have this product list. I'll actually do this here. I'll use the product list, the first value only. So product list, first one, 0th element, I will save as our product. and this R product can simply be passed using what all did we have to pass? We had to pass name, cost, and URL. So I will pass all these, saying name is R product dot name. Wait, it's called name, right? Yeah, name. Similarly, for cost, we will pass our product dot cost and then caps lock, and URL would be dot URL. Cool. So, and we did not close product, so I'll put a backslash here. Product is not defined, we have to import this. So this got imported here. And use context is not defined in product. Let's go to product. Use context has to be imported from React. So if I just do this, it auto imports for me. And component is defined, which is not used. We were using this as in the class. So now we don't need it anymore. Let's go to the browser and see how it looks. This is the card page. Let's go back to the home page. Oh, we got a lot of errors. Props is not defined. So we had a this here. And this is, we were using class component and hence we had to use this. This is another major thing that is off our head now. We don't have to take care of where it's binding and what it's binding with. Props have to be passed to that functional component. No? Okay, object with keys, username, where are username? Yeah, so we are trying to print a object here. We'll do a dot username because we are passing an object. Okay, there we go. So what will happen on this home page? We actually imported the first element from our product list, which was a green apple. And we can now see that green apple rendered because we imported the product component in home. In the product component, we were using this username which we passed from index.js file through a context. So if we look at the context again in the index file, we passed it through a provider, and in the consumer file, we actually use the use context hook to get that value. So we are sending Aditi here, and we are receiving it in a leaf node and printing the value as demo value.username because this was an object. Okay, and then the counter also works, and that's all for the demo. That's me signing off. I hope you got to learn something, at least the first 3 basic hooks. And how was it?
It was amazing, Aditi.
Good?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Anyone who has any questions can post in the YouTube live stream, or you guys can unmute who are on the Hangout calls.
Okay, I think we can continue the session. I hope you all liked it.
Yeah,
I will
it
share
was
the
awesome.
presentation on my Twitter handle maybe. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Megha, do you want to go next? I mean,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Amazing presentation, Aditi. Really loved it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. I'm sharing my screen. Let me know when it's visible. Is it visible, guys?
Yes, it is visible.
Cool. So the last time I was speaking at this meetup, I did a really long talk about open source. So this time I've prepared a really short talk. Let's keep some mix. So I have been exploring Gatsby recently, and I really loved it. Loved working with it. So in this talk, we will be talking about introduction of Gatsby, what it is about, and how it is relevant with modern web, and how it works under the hood. So this is my introduction. I majorly work around React. I'm a final year student as of now, and tomorrow I'm getting onboarded at Portfolio as a product engineer. I will be handling development as well as product. This is my website. You can find pretty much everything about me there. And this is my Twitter handle in case you want to give any feedback about this. Talk to me. So these are the three major things that we will be learning today. Very first thing is what is Gatsby and why it matters, and what are the Gatsby fundamentals and how it works under the hood. So let me first ask you guys who are on the meet call, have you, like, how much familiarity do you have with Gatsby?
Not much.
First time.
Familiar.
Okay. So yeah, let's begin. So I made this whole presentation pretty basic since I had no idea like who all would be joining. So there are few challenges with the modern web. The very first thing is, as of now, we have so many technologies like just to build front end only. And when it comes to back end, we have another set of so many tools. Like I can build the front end with Angular or React, or even with simple HTML, CSS, JS. So there are like too many options right now present around us. So getting started is a little bit overwhelming. Like what to choose first and what to learn first, and by which framework or library would be more suitable for our work, and we would be getting the best results. And secondly, the way we manage data is evolving right now. Like uh, we need 3D images or we need video embedded in our website, so if we can't really afford to hamper all the time our sites get to load themselves if we burden them much with our data. And because of so many choices and so many demands with us, getting started is quite hard now. So this is a simple workflow which includes a lot of boilerplate when we start. Like we need Webpack, then we need Post CSS, and then we need Kubernetes containers to handle things then fastly, or Netlify or anything to deploy. So there are too many things in between, and this is all is just to get something up and running in the browser. We haven't written any code yet. So this is like I would say the prerequisites of getting anything up and going. So if I tell you in the simplest terms what is Gatsby, then Gatsby is the shortcut to allow developers to build quick website and apps. So in Gatsby, the boilerplate looks something like this. You start the Gatsby starter, like I would say the starting like Gatsby comes with starters and like initial boilerplates, like we do the create React app. It is quite similar in Gatsby. Then you write your whole app using React and GraphQL. So there is no need of learning something else, as your whole app is getting written in React only. Then you can simply deploy it. So it reduces a lot of middle things that are required in other setups. So yeah, this is the very first thing. Like it reduces the too much of boilerplate in between, and getting up and running is really quick, as there is not much of setup that is required. The second thing that is this point is really is my personal favorite, that Gatsby acts as an orchestration layer for taming the content mesh. As of now, if I show you this website, like just suppose this is a website diagram, and you would be seeing such sort of website everywhere. Like there is a search bar, there are images that are being set in that blog or website. There is content coming from somewhere, and in most of the websites there is this store where you can buy stuff. So like what would you call this website? Is it a blog since content is there, or is it an e-commerce or something since stores and things are there that you can buy? So it is a mix of things. before, when anybody used to develop website, they need to like have some choice at first to shoehorn things, basically. like uh, uh, if you want to make a Shopify website, you need a blog as well, you need a solution to somehow shoehorn a blog in Shopify, or vice versa is also true. If you need a store in your blog or something where you are selling merchandise or anything, then you need to find a way to somehow integrate it with it. So people were quite confused, like what to choose and what to integrate in what. So Gatsby pretty much solves this whole problem with us. Gatsby simply suggests you to bring together the best of everything. Like you want to use Airtable in your websites, you can use it. Like you can integrate all of it using plugins and everything. This is what we call the content mesh. Like to bring and unite together all the different components, like a search from a completely different place, image optimization system from a completely different place, and a content management system from completely different place, and bring them together, write your whole app using GraphQL and React, and simply deploy it using Netlify or Fastly or any CI/CD deployment you want. And the best part is Gatsby is not just a static site. It unravels itself as a React progressive web app. So there are, like, it is quite responsive and completely like a progressive web app. So there is no issues, like the site is completely static and you can't perform functions on it. So that's a really good feature that Gatsby gives us. uh, I included one example of Gatsby store itself. So Gatsby is open source, and it gives swags to people who put open source contributions to it. So if you look at, you can go to this page if you want. It is store GirlsWhoJS.com, if I'm not wrong. Then you can see, on the left hand side there is the login option. It is coming from auth, and in between there are the store elements are there, which are coming from a Shopify store. So this is a breakdown that is shared by Gatsby itself, how the main store of Gatsby itself is built upon Gatsby, like built with Gatsby, and it is an integration of really different things. Like this is coming from auth, this is coming from Shopify, and once you log in, they check your contributions to it through GitHub. So this the details that come here, like how many contributions you have made to Gatsby, come here, and this information is fetched from GitHub, and that's how you can redeem your swags and everything. I haven't made any contributions to Gatsby yet. But I'm looking forward to make some of those. Is like it is a really good framework, and since I have been already working with React, it would be quite interesting to deep dive into it. So there are a few reasons for, like more. You can see this written at so many places. Gatsby is blazing fast, and the websites you made with Gatsby are faster than any other options you can generally find. So there are few reasons because of which this is possible. Why Gatsby is so fast? Before discussing them, let's discuss one more point. How Gatsby acts like a progressive web app generator. So when we are making any progressive web app, there are like tons of choices we need to make, like what image optimization system we would be using, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, like where would the CMS would be handled and everything. So Gatsby saves a lot of time by simply setting the right defaults under the hood. There are PRPL patterns that there are so many settings that it sets by default. Like there is a static asset generator that is available with Gatsby that requires no server, so it sets it by default. But the very big thing that is available with Gatsby is even when all the things are set up by default, the developer has the full control to it. So the Babel and the Webpack are fully customizable using Gatsby APIs. If you want to, you don't need to alter all the settings of your